What's up, y'all? Back again today with a very special video. So today I wanted to talk to you about black power. That's right, I wanted to talk to you about black power. Now, there's a few things that I have to talk to you about, but first I feel the necessity to tell you basically what I feel black power is. Because, let's be honest, this is a term that's used quite often within the black community. And on the contrary end of that statement would be, of course, the phrase white power, which we should also discuss as well. So before I even get into it, of course, I wanted to tell you all, as I always do, that I'm a person that's here for righteousness. I'm here for progression. I'm here for understanding a collective evolution of human beings, regardless of your race or your gender, anything like that. I'm here for progression and understanding. With that being said, we must discuss a number of topics, however cliche, however taboo, however stereotypical, however otherwise off limits. We have to discuss these topics in order to move forward, because what's happening is that many people have their own particular opinions and ideas and beliefs that they hold dear, but they're not able to accept anyone else's opinion on the matter. And when their beliefs are confronted, they become very hostile. So this is why we always have to be very careful when touching racial issues. But of course, I've made a number of videos before about race. So this is why we're speaking about black power. So, of course, let's talk about white power before we talk about black power, because I just want to let you know that the term black power was created as a sort of retaliation or a sort of counter statement to the phrase white power. When we think of white power, of course, we have to talk about white supremacy, the Ku Klux Klan, the structured enforcement of the ideologies of white supremacy. All of these things come to mind when we talk about white power, the phrase white power. Now, we have to first make the distinction between white power and black power. The first thing I want to say is that white power is basically, when someone says white power, this is to signify that white people, quote unquote, and I've made a number of videos about how no one should consider themselves white. I can make another video about that, which I will, but this is not about what it's called. We're just talking about the Caucasian, which is referred to as white. When someone says white power, they're usually talking about power or enforcement or supremeness of just whites. And anyone else who is not white would be below that. Of course, meaning black, being the opposite of white, would be at the very bottom of this quote-unquote white power structure. So this is why we have to make the distinction early on that white power and black power are very different sentiments. So since we've already quickly discussed white power and how this is basically denoting or connotating the idea that only one set of people deserves power over everyone else and no one else deserves power. On the contrary, black power, as I said, is a retaliation statement. I'll tell you what I mean by that. When someone says black power, we're basically saying power, giving power to the people who've had that power stripped from them. Now, if you can please just understand that there were a number of instances in which, through chattel slavery, black men and women in America, which we've deemed ourselves black because we have no nation or land to attribute our personal self to. And again, America being only 200 some odd years old, it would be incorrect to refer to ourselves as simply American. So blacks that are descendants of chattel slavery, we've been stripped from certain things that identify us. This is why we call ourselves black. Now, moving forward, we have to understand in these times of slavery, again, not saying that only black people were slaves, but in the times of chattel slavery in America, there were a number of things that were stripped from us. Again, being our name, our heritage, our land, our culture, our religion. These identifying factors were stripped from us, including our knowledge, our ability to teach our children and educate our children, including the fact that we were separated from our physical families, our husbands, our wives, our children. The bonds and the relationships that we had were severed. The love that we had builded throughout the years with our family has been severed. And there has been concerted efforts in order to not reattach that relationship within our communities. So when we understand that these unique things have happened to us that have been stripped from us, when we say black power, what we're really saying is power be to those who have had that power stripped from them. This is not in any way to say that only black people should have power. This is not in any way to say that white people should not have power as well. This is to say that as opposed to white power, black power is speaking to a people who have had a number of things particularly stripped from them. Now, black people have never stripped white people of their names. Black people have never stripped white people of their ability to believe in certain entities. Okay? So this is why when we say black power and white power, they're two different statements. Black power is not detracting from anyone else's power. It's simply reaffirming and restating and reassuring these black melanated people, these descendants of chattel slavery, that they do indeed have power and they are indeed loved. So now this is where I wanted to come from my perspective of getting a general understanding of how there's a stark contrast between black power and white power. So you can't come up on my channel talking white power. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you have it. I'm really going to let you have it, because white power connotates stripping my power, whereas black power just reaffirms the fact that I still have power myself as a black melanated being. So now I just want to tell you a story about what happened at work today. So I was at work and one of my guests at my job was from Egypt. So we started quickly talking and I just asked them, because at this point I just love having discussions, and I honestly don't, I do care if it bothers people, and I don't have discussions in order to bother people, but some of the discussions that interest me or that I find that will be progressive to have are somewhat uncomfortable for people to have. So I asked my guests from Egypt today, it was 3 people, 2 men and a woman. I asked them, I said, hey guys, just don't be off put by this question, but just answer honestly, would you? You being from Egypt, can you tell me what is the perception of African Americans in Egypt? And I clarified and I said, if I were to go, just as I'm dressed and looking today and speaking today, to Egypt, what would be the general consensus, or how would I generally be treated? Now, he first off let me know that there's different parts of Egypt, as I understand. And his wife quickly tried to state the fact that, well, they would love me because they love tourists. They love tourists in Egypt. But the husband quickly corrected her and said, honey, be realistic. He said they're very radical out there in Egypt, and he said that they will not be understanding of African Americans. In other words, he said I'd have a negative reaction and I would be looked down on if I, a black man in America, went to Egypt. Now this is quickly where I have to bring up a few things. Now, I've made a video before about how in the quote-unquote conscious community, or the black community, we have a number of people. Within the 14% of blacks in America, we have a large amount of different groups. We have Christians, Muslims, we have people who study Kemetic science, which is Egyptian beliefs. We also have the 5%ers, we also have Masons, we have Crips, Bloods, we have a number of people incarcerated. So there are a number of divisions within this black community. But a large group within these subgroups would be the Kemetic sciences. Now, if you're not aware, Egypt, before it was referred to as Egypt, was referred to as Kemet. So a person who believes in Kemetic sciences and the Kemetic history has basically researched the history of Egypt and how black people may or may not have relation to the people that are depicted on the hieroglyphs on the walls. Now, this is not my particular field of study, so I don't claim to know any particular hieroglyphics, but this is where I would say that a number of people within the black community wear what we know as the Ankh, right? So if you know the Ankh, basically the Ankh is one of the many symbols that have been found and supposedly deciphered from the walls on the ancient hieroglyphics in Egypt. I bring this up to say that there are, yes, a number of black people who are wearing symbology such as the Ankh and the Eye of Horus that are depicted on the hieroglyphics in Egypt, and they claim to have direct lineage to Egypt, to the kings and queens in Egypt, But when you speak to an Egyptian who lives there right now, they're telling you that if you bring your black self over to Egypt tomorrow, you will not be received well. This, in a sense, it blew my mind. I didn't necessarily know that, and I didn't want to know that, but I do know it now. The fact of the matter is, this brings it makes it hit home hard for me, because I've been slowly realizing that there is no place in the world, much less America, but as a whole in the world, that a black American can go and feel that he is at home and he is accepted and he is not looked at as lesser than. Because of course we can speak about racial issues in America. I do it all the time. I'm from America. The first time I felt like someone was being racist against me, I was 7 years old. So if you could imagine 20 plus years of seeing racism confront you, obviously in America, I know what it is. But we have to understand that there's different perspectives from around the world. And we also have to make the distinction, although we do have ties to Africa, there is also a clear distinction. As of 2017, there is a clear distinction being made from other races that African Americans and Africans are two different groups. Okay, I've made a video called "The Relationship Between Africans and Blacks in America," and how we can realize that we have very similar phenotypes and very similar, obviously, skin types. We may even have DNA that resembles, but we have to say in 2017 there's a difference between blacks in America and Africans. Because again, if you are an African, if you are from Africa directly, you're not necessarily calling yourself an African. If you are from, from whatever particular country you are from in Africa, that is where you identify from. And I know people even from Nigeria that will take it a step further and say, even within Africa, within Nigeria, there's even tribes. There's different tribes within those countries, within that continent. This is why I say, as a black American, we are the most far removed unwillfully. Because a number of people then will say, well, everyone who came to America has been removed from their culture. But have you been forcibly removed? The fact that you don't know your language or the clothing that is from your particular landmass that is predominant out there, or the food that's predominant out there, or the history from where your lineage comes from, the fact that you don't know that is very likely due to ignorance on someone's part. Not saying it's willful ignorance, but the fact that this tradition has not been passed down, this family history has not been passed down, is a personal issue. This is not across the board for your entire race. This is not across the board for your entire country, that your entire country's history was completely stripped. This is the black Americans' predicament. We have to understand the Willie Lynch letters, which I'm going to make a video about. We have to understand the different things that they did to take away our particular identity as a people, and then not only take away our identity, leaving us as a blank canvas, but then they implanted negative stereotypes and images and stories to us and to others to not only keep us unaware of who we were, but then to paint us as something negative. So we went from being possibly a majestic, kind, righteous people to a lost and ignorant people to now a negative and savage people, all due to manipulation and our being unaware of our history. Okay, so this is why I go back to the Egypt story. The people at Egypt, they are telling me that I can't go back there because, now, believe me, no one can tell me I can't go anywhere. I'll go wherever I very well please, as the Lord is my witness. But he's telling me that when I go back there, the reception given to me from the average citizen in Egypt is not going to be kind. Mind you, we have to take into account the history of things like the Sphinx, not only the Ankh that we're wearing, but the Sphinx in Egypt, which was considered and believed and alleged to be the face of a black man. Now, this is where I have to give you a quick history lesson, that it's also alleged that the reason why the nose is cut off of structures like the Sphinx is not due to deterioration over the years. If you notice, no other part of this entire structure this huge structure is deteriorated due to time or weather. However, the nose, one of the most distinguishing features on a black man's face, is somehow removed. This, in my belief, in my personal opinion, was because, yes, that statue is of a black man's face. But as we come to understand, if a people do not want you to aspire for greatness, they have to destroy any instances of greatness. So if we see a huge statue with a black man's face, that may give some kind of inclination to the younger people that want to be like that. This is why maybe now we just have black men who just carry a ball all day. So now we look at the black man with a ball and say, I want to be that black man, as opposed to the black man with a shield or a sword or a book in his hand that has a statue. Now, this is another topic that I could talk about a different day, but yes, we have to understand, how is it that I, as a black man who very well, my face could be the type of face that was on that Sphinx in Egypt, how can I not go back to Egypt and feel at home? Why am I not exonerated? Why am I not revered? Why am I not loved out there? Where can I go as a black man that I'm loved? I can't go to LA and be loved. I'm from LA. I can't go to Houston and be loved. I live in Houston. I can't go to New Orleans and be loved. We're swimming 5 days in dead bodies in the water. I can't go to New York and be loved. I can't go to Chicago and be loved. I can't go to Miami and be loved. And now I'm finding out I very well can't even go to places in Africa and be loved. So while we're sitting here saying, I'm from Africa, I'm African American, no, you're not, because when you go back to Africa, they might call you something that you, other than family member. They might call you something different than brother. However, this is not to say that we should dissociate. There was a man who I was speaking to again at work, and he was telling me, well, African Americans' biggest problem is we need to dissociate or move. They need to move away from Africans because Africans don't embrace them, and which I understand the dynamic, but I don't ever think we should sever ties, as he suggested, with the African community. I think it's important that we embrace the fact that we are African American and embrace the things that we have created, such as hip hop, right? Such as basketball, these type of things that we are so great at. We should be able to excel in that and stand on our own merit in that. We don't have to sever ties with the African nation, but we should stand and realize that not only we have great establishments and accomplishments here in America, but let's be honest. The research proves and shows evidence that there were black, melanated, what you may even refer to now as an African American people here, native, indigenous to this land that we now call America. There is evidence to show that there were people who were darker than me who lived on this land before slavery. So this is why I say I'm far removed from my identity, because on one instance, for so long I've heard I should move back to Africa. I should go back to Africa. I'm African American. But then I hear, one, there's certain places in Africa that I even can't go to. And two, I very well may not even have family from Africa. I may be indigenous to this land. My family may be indigenous to this land. This is why we have to understand that some history has been covertly hidden from us or coincidentally hidden from the history books. This is why we have to do our own research, come to our own conclusions, and have discussions and dialogues to what makes the most sense. This brings me to another story about another girl at work. She's new and she's from Pakistan, and she overheard the story about the man from Egypt, and we just started talking. And at this point I was just asking different people from different parts around the world what their perception is of black people in America. And from the information that I've gathered from a number of people from around the world, the perception of African Americans, again, there's a distinction between African Americans and Africans. So the perception of African Americans from people around the world is that we are lesser than. They look down on us, and they said so honestly. They told me honestly because they respected my opinion. They respected the fact that I wanted honest answers. And I also have to say that two different groups of people, both the Egyptian people and the woman from Pakistan from my job that I asked, in different instances, I asked them, why do you think they look down on black people? And they both used the same words. They both said that they have more of a primitive thinking in these nations, such as Pakistan, such as Egypt, certain maybe third world countries that we may refer to. They have a quote-unquote primitive thinking. This is what makes me understand that, well, one, we have to understand, are you going along with this ideology as well? Do you view it as primitive, and have you dissociated from this primitive thinking? And two, primitive, we have to understand, meaning this is an idea that was first in conception when these nations first came together. These ideas that blacks were savages and lesser than, this is what they mean by primitive thinking. These were the ideals of people such as Charles Darwin, people such as Blumenbach, okay? These are the original white supremacists who created the term white and black and red and yellow and brown, who categorized us into this, who came to their own theories that we were lesser than. This is why we have to understand that we have to look at our perception from around the world, whether it be Pakistan, whether it be Japan, whether it be Egypt, again, another place in Africa, who are looking at black Americans as lesser than. Again, giving me the same question, where can I go as a black man, and where can my children go as a black man or woman, where they are accepted and truly loved? Not just fetishized. Because you can do our dances, and you can whip and you can nay-nay, and you can turn your hat to the back and take our culture from us. But as Jesse Williams said, you can't use us as a costume, as a superhero costume. This is what they're doing to us. They're using our talents and our God-gifted abilities as superhero costumes and dismissing us the day after Halloween. So this is why you can dress up maybe as Superman, because you want to feel how it feels to be Superman. You want the big arms. You want people to come and adore you as Superman. But if the world was truly in peril on Halloween and you were just dressed as Superman, you're not going to go fly up there. You're not going to shoot lasers out of your eyes. You're not even going to want to if you could. You're going to throw that suit off because you're not really Superman. You're not even Clark Kent. So this is what a number of people who aren't black, the only time that they show that they love us or that they adore us was when they do our dances and when they take from our culture without truly even giving us the merits for it. So this is why this is complete hypocrisy. And if there was anyone that is not black that is hearing this and you are not enraged by what I'm saying, well, it's because you're not feeling empathy and you're damn sure not feeling sympathy. And not that I want either from you, because this message is for the people who understand it. So moving forward, another story that I wanted to relate to you, again, comes from work. And I love speaking to people at work because it's one thing to talk to your friends about issues that you may not agree with, but let's be honest, the fact that they're your friends, tells you that you mostly have the same type of likes and dislikes generally. You may disagree about small things, but you generally like and dislike and come from the same type of environment, which is why it's your friend. At work, however, you are in close proximity for a large amount of time with people who you may otherwise not have any dealings with. This is why I've had discussions with people from Uganda, from Egypt, from Pakistan, from Korea, from Venezuela, all at my job. So moving forward, I had another discussion with a man from Vietnam recently. One of my co-workers named Long. What's up, Long? So Long is from Vietnam. Long is a real cool guy. And we were talking one day and Long told me that his family, well, first thing he told me was that his family started moving from Vietnam to America in the 80s. Okay? So he had 4 different sets of family who moved periodically since the 80s till now. He also told me that when he has the family reunion out here, he said, just the people who can make it to America from Vietnam, there are 250 human beings at Long's family reunion in America. That's just the people who can make it. That's just the people who can afford or who live out here. Those 250 human beings are all related to Long. Long has not been separated from his lineage in the same manner as a black American. Do you understand my point? Black Americans in America might have 50 people at their family reunion, if that. My family reunion was much smaller, and that was just on my dad's side. My mom's side is this big. So what I'm saying is that there's a huge, stark difference between the cultures different cultures, and this isn't necessarily a comparing the struggle story. I'm not comparing struggles, but I'm saying the oppression and the predicament of the Black American is very unique in the sense that we are the most far removed from our identity. This is not to say that I'm mad at Long because Long gets to have 250 of his family members come together in love and unison. As a matter of fact, that made me want to cry. That made me want to cry in joy and in pain. I was in joy for Long, but I was in pain for the fact that I'll never have 250 people that I know that are related to me. I'll never have that, and you have to understand my predicament. I'm going to give you some real truth right now, and I wasn't even going to say this. But I never grew up around my father, my biological father. I didn't grow up around my biological father. Okay? And there's a number of things that happen when you don't grow up around your parent. Or what happened to me when I didn't grow up around my biological father. What happened to me was that, the main thing that happened to me was that I felt a sense of longing for who I was. I needed to know who I was. I needed to know who I came from because, of course, I saw my mother, but I needed to know my father. I am a man, and I needed to know the man that I came from. I needed to know if he had my nose, my face, if he had my smile, if he had my imagination, if he had my temper, which it turns out he actually does. And it wasn't until I came in contact with my father when I turned 18 that he actually told me some things about myself that he learned from his self. This is where I was able to finally come to conclusion and closure, because I was actually able to see where I come from, to know where I come from, whether good or bad. I could make the decision on who I was from there. So I use this analogy, and I hope you appreciate my truth, because that's not something that I tell everybody. But I use that analogy to show the predicament of blacks in America. We are a bastard children. We are orphan children, a forcibly orphaned children. We are a kidnapped children. And we want to know our parents. Our parents. We want to know what our parents look like. Do our parents smile like us? Do they dream like us? Will they fight like us? What is our language? If you can't understand the struggle and the sense of longing in that, then I need you to find a place in your heart for human compassion, because you're lacking that right now. And again, this isn't to say that anybody who has that connection to their family is I'm mad at them. This is to say that this is why I speak out. And because not only are we missing these things, but then there are a number of lost children that don't realize that they're missing this, and their psychology is skewed because of these set of circumstances, and now they're reacting in negative ways, which we're calling them thugs, we're calling them gangsters, we're calling them murderers and monsters and thieves, but they're lost and they don't even know it. So I have to speak out for it, because the men and women who do know it, the black men and women who do know what I'm saying, a lot of them are bought out, and a lot of them are selfish, and they just want to do things for their own gain. They just want to get their own nice house and move out. And Steve Harvey, I said it. Yes, Steve Harvey, you want to get your nice house and move out of the hood. I haven't seen you in the hood in years. And now you want to come back with Donald Trump and say, oh yeah, we're going to come to Chicago and fix the inner cities. Steve Harvey, I haven't seen you in the inner cities, brother. But I digress. My initial point was black power. This is to say, all of this was to say that we need black power. We need to restore the righteousness. We need to restore the majesty. We need to restore the glory and the love and the unity within the black American family structure. Point blank. Period. There's no more confusion. There's no more apologizing. I am here now. Do you understand? I am here, and I've done my research. So if you're a white supremacist, or if you follow the ideologies of enforcing white supremacy, you should be scared right now. I'm telling you. You're going to have to do something about me. You're going to definitely have to do something about me. So with that being said, I don't want to take too much of your time. But I am here for black power, because again, black power is black unity, black righteousness. And your last task of the day is to research the word black. Go in Google right now and type in black definition. You will see that the word black means it is the darkest hue, the darkest shade due to either the lack of light or the complete absorption of light. In other words, your dictionary, your Google, your government is telling you that you're black. And they also told you that black means you are absorbed with light. You are filled with light. There is never a circumstance where being filled with light is a bad thing. If you want to think about it metaphysically, metaphorically, in an analogy, realistically, scientifically, religiously, spiritually, light is information. Light is righteousness. If you are black, you are filled with light. Take that with you and call yourself black with righteousness. And please, vibrate higher.